Hi everyone, it's Steve Quinn and welcome back to our next video on Coach Basics. If you're still with us, that's fantastic and a real demonstration of your commitment to becoming a better coach. So that's all good. What we want to focus on today is talking about questioning, one of the key areas that you really need to refine if you're going to be a good coach. So that's the focus of our time today. Now, many of us will have existing skills in this area, so let's see if we can build on those. Okay, questioning. What are we talking about here? I want to connect it particularly with the use of the GROW model. So that's our foundation model for coaching that we've been talking about. And you might remember that we gave you some suggested questions to use at each stage of the GROW model. So let's go over that again and perhaps add a little to that. Okay, so a quick refresher on GROW. The 4 stages: G for goals, R for reality, O for options, and W for wrap up. Let's look at some questions at each of these stages, starting with the G stage, the goals stage. So some typical questions here might be things like, so what would you like to take from our conversation today? Or what would you like to achieve from this meeting? Or what would be a good outcome from today? Or what would you like to focus on or talk about today? So these kinds of questions provide a starting point for the conversation. They give it focus and they give it a sense of direction. And the result is the conversation has purpose, and that's important in any coaching conversation. Okay, so that's the first stage. We now know broadly what we're going to be talking about. And the next stage, of course, is to explore the reality of the situation. So questions we might have here could include, so can you describe what's been going on so far? Or what's working well currently for you? What's been your approach up to this point? Tell me a bit about what's been happening in recent months. Who's been involved? What do you see as the gaps currently that you need to plug in order to move forward? Or what's changing that requires a different response? So you get the drift. This is about getting clear about the current situation and beginning to clarify what needs to change or what needs to adjust. And if we're thinking about our development, it might be about taking stock and getting clarity about what comes next. Now, we should remember that coaching is future-focused, looking ahead, and it's important in the reality phase that people begin to get a sense of direction about where they might be heading so that we can move to the next stage where we consider options. Now, options is the phase where we explore alternatives to resolve a problem or to move forward. So let's say you've identified a need to up your game in a particular area. Perhaps you have some new responsibilities or a new activity to undertake. Considering options encourages you to think about the alternative ways of making progress. Perhaps you require some new skills or knowledge. How could you do that? So in the options phase, we're asking questions like, so what solutions are available to you in this situation? What have you thought of? What have colleagues done in this situation? What factors do you need to take account of? Have you considered, do you have a preferred option? Who might give you support in this area? So these are some examples, and of course there are dozens of questions that could be asked, and you should tailor them to the situation under discussion. It's important not to offer advice or your solution here, but to encourage self-sufficiency. If you seem to have explored a range of options and the person being coached is beginning to favour a particular way forward, or perhaps a combination of options, then that could indicate that it's time to move on to the last stage of the grow process, the wrap-up stage. And remember, at this stage, we're trying to confirm the way forward, to encourage commitment to follow through, and to agree the next steps, the steps that of the plan, if that's appropriate. And lastly, we're trying to build some accountability for action by agreeing on a review mechanism of some sort, a future meeting or date where we'll review just what progress has been made. And we might also want to talk a little about the support required and perhaps about any possible obstacles or barriers that could get in the way of making this plan happen. So questions in the wrap-up stage could be things like, so what have you decided? Could you just summarise the different elements of that? What do you think the next steps are? What support do you need? Who could help you with this? What might hold you back? Should we meet again to review progress on this? So that's the approach we suggest for questioning using GROW. And again, it's situational. You have to pick some questions that fit the situation that you're in. Okay, rely on your crib sheet a little bit, but you know, just avoid that being wooden. It would be good as you think about your coaching, if in the next few days you could spend a little bit of time reflecting and perhaps practicing some of these different kinds of questions. So if we ask a question, shut up and listen to the answer. That's my simple advice. Just zip it. The essence of coaching is that we're listened to, and if the coach doesn't listen, the process breaks down. And of course, if we're thinking about our next question rather than listening to the answer, we might ask the wrong next question. And again, the process starts to break down. So it's appropriate that we listen to the answer and then form our question. And don't get too stressed about that. You'll be surprised about how the question will form as you listen. And it's okay to pause while you just refine that question before you ask it. Having gaps and little silences in coaching conversations are perfectly okay. So, important to listen when we've asked some questions. If we haven't listened well, you know where we're going. A well-known American coach called Marshall Goldsmith says that one of the most passive-aggressive things that we can do to a colleague or you know, a family member is not to listen. That's how toxic he thinks not listening is. So listening, which we're going to cover next time, is the flip side of questioning. So go get some practice with your questions, and next time we'll talk about listening. Remember to do that, and we'll focus on that topic next time. I look forward to that. Enjoy your coaching. Go get some practice. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.